Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the majority's focus today on equitable opportunities as a part of today's hearing title. What we've seen in the past from Democrat Congresses as well as the administration has been more of a, I think, an insistence on massive government subsidies and top-down mandates that unfortunately pick winners and losers. When we think about policies to advance clean energy solutions to lower emissions, it should be technology neutral and allow private sector innovation to occur, free from the government mandates and without having to compete on unequal grounds. I look forward to working with my colleagues on this committee, Republicans and Democrats, to really identify the solutions that are going to lower emissions, but do it free from the government mandates and really make it more equitable. As we consider policies to promote renewable energy technologies compared to other energy solutions, it's critical that we examine their entire life cycle and the impact their manufacturing, components, and materials have on the environment. Dr. Michaud-Foss mentions in her testimony that nearly 80% of lithium battery manufacturing capability for electric vehicles is in China, whose grid is overwhelmingly powered by coal-fired plants. A similar percentage of global supply for solar panels also originates in China. Dr. Michaud-Foss, how should we consider the impact of the manufacturing process on these renewable technologies, the impact that they're having on the environment when we are evaluating their efficacy for reducing emissions globally, especially coming from high emission countries like China? And how do we mitigate these issues?
I would have to say that one of my biggest concerns is that if you try to accelerate by any means, either market incentives or direct policy intervention, subsidies, whatever, the process of speeding up the integration of certain technologies that we don't produce ourselves, opponents of which we don't produce ourselves, all we're doing effectively is shifting our emissions abroad. Now, we've been doing this for a really long time. All of the more developed countries have been doing this for a very long time. And so the net improvements that everybody hopes to gain in terms of whatever it is that we're after, reducing greenhouse gas emissions or achieving more equitable access to energy, universal access to energy, whatever the targets are, all become diminished if that's what we end up doing. This is a really difficult conversation with China. I think everybody's got to be honest about that. We're all hopeful. Those of us who have studied the country for years, been there, that they'll continue to make improvements in their own energy system. I mean, they're doing certain things, but they also have a very strong stand of self-determination and a very little willingness, it seems, to engage in ways that I think others would like them to. So I think that has to be part of the conversation. It's part of the reality check on all of this. I would point to an example over the past few days. Angela Merkel in Germany got her reality check on this because the Germans would like to be very assertive and stronger in terms of what they're doing, and they would like to be able to meet their policy goals and policy targets. But it's meaningless if what they're doing is effectively having to rely on China for a lot of their inputs. And the Chinese are not willing to make the same kinds of commitments. I mean, that's where we are, I think, in the discussions.
Yes, I appreciate that. We're also seeing issues arise at the end of these technology life cycles. According to some estimates, there will be 600,000 tons of waste batteries removed from EVs by 2025, 78 million tons of solar panel waste by 2050. As we continue to compete with China and producing critical materials and manufacturing clean energy technology, recycling could help us reduce waste and increase our ability to compete. Dr. Michaud, some have said that recovering reusable materials from discarded devices remains impractical, especially because they are not made as part of Do you agree with that view? And how clear is it whether a profitable industry will be born in time to prevent clean energy from adding to the planet's already growing pile of waste?
Well, do you want me to answer? The clock is over. Let me just say quickly, there are a lot of ideas. There's good work that's being done on recapture and recycling. I gave you all the figure that we know, or that we think we know, which is 5% of recovery of lithium batteries. I mean, it's really hard to track this stuff. Very, very difficult. Lack of data, lack of information, lack of transparency. There are huge issues in tracking waste in general, but e-waste in particular. And then, frankly, when it comes to things like, and I'm sure the other panelists, Dr. Saha, for instance, would be aware of this, when it comes to recapturing and recycling or properly disposing of waste associated with renewable energy components, there's really an unwillingness to talk about that and engage on it, probably for a whole variety of reasons. But it's something that we have to own up to, and we have to figure out. It's going to be part of the problem solving in order to be able to move forward the right way. So it can be done. People have to be realistic about the timing and the cost and whether it's profitable or not.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll yield back. Yes.
Okay, the gentleman.